Hi, I'll pick up where I left off in the last video from the chapter on the Mordent in Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach's Versuch über die wahre Art des Klavier zu spielen. So that glimpse into the world of music Bach gives us with that sentence in paragraph 8. Man wird diesem Fehler dadurch leicht entgehen können, wenn man durch den gehörigen Druck und durch die Unterhaltung einer Note gewahr wird, dass unser Instrument den Ton länger aushält, als viele glauben mögen. So that glimpse into the world of music Bach gives us with that sentence leads him into saying that the beauty of the lingering tone, the resonance of it, can't be hindered. That is instruction on its performance, on interpretation, on der gute Vortrag. Like with trills, one can't introduce it over every somewhat long note. And different to trills, one can't hold it out too long. There always needs to be a little space of time left over. As opposed to the trill, whose afterstroke, or itself, if it doesn't have an afterstroke, is connected to the following note with the greatest of speed. Three variants of Mordents that I play in his father's toccata give a sense of such spaces of time for the lingering tone on the shorter end of the scale. The last long mordent is filling out the note. Here's paragraph 20 from the chapter on ornaments in general. Ungeachtet wir in der Folge sehen werden, dass man zuweilen mit Fleiß eine Manier über einer langen Note anbringet, welche die Währung dieser Note nicht völlig ausfüllt, so muss man dennoch hierbei die letzte Note einer solchen Manier nicht eher aufheben, als bis die folgende kommt, indem der Endzweck aller Manieren hauptsächlich dahin gerichtet sein muss, die Noten zusammenzuhängen. What ornament was Bach referring to there in that paragraph of that chapter? Now we're in a position to make an educated guess. And if it wasn't the Mordent, I do think, regardless of that, what he says there can be connected to what he says here in paragraph 8. In that paragraph 20, he has taken an alternative approach to his message of not hindering the beauty of the lingering sound. So muss man dennoch hierbei die letzte Note einer solchen Manier nicht eher aufheben, als bis die folgende kommt. I'd as well be thinking of how I play the long Mordent at the beginning of the Largo Maestoso. Do I hold it out too long? But then again, has it been connected to the following note with the greatest of speed? There is no following note. Is that one of those exceptions for which Bach provides a caveat in his introduction? I have pondered that. When you escape the cage, you'll find yourself subject to forces, to laws of nature, laws of physics that don't exist in the cage. An aeroplane that doesn't find itself subject to forces made manifest by way of an adherence to the laws of physics, the laws of creation, doesn't fly. An airplane has to be made subject to the forces that exist in nature if it is to fly. This could be something that turns people off AC fingering at the very beginning when you try it. They feel these forces for the first time, and their first reaction is to push AC fingering and its finger position away because its newness is unpleasant and because it feels like a loss of control. They've been floating weightlessly, left to their own devices in the void of the cage, the vacuum of the cage, and now it's like they suddenly experience gravity. They won't like that. They like to be in, they might hear a note being played louder and it was played louder and it wasn't because they decided to play it louder. And they might think, no, I don't like this. This is having me things is making me do things that I didn't actually instigate. I don't like this loss of control. That'll be the natural thing, and you have to sit with it longer than that and realize that those things you are experiencing the effects of forces that do not exist in the cage. And what I find is, the irony of that is that'll be rejected. I don't like that. It made me do things I wasn't in control of. And they'll say, and when what happens in the cage then? The people who reject anything that gives them a feeling like they have a loss of control, they go and they try and pass the responsibility to remembering what they do to the muscle memory. You'll hear Roll of Honor, Lilliput people talking about the most important thing in memory is muscle memory. They're passing the responsibility. They want the muscles to take care of the memory, remembering the pieces. They're practicing hours endlessly with the metronome because they want the fingers to know what to do. So they spent all their time passing the responsibility of everything. What's left for their brain to do at the end of the day? When they give, which they never will in the cage, but if they give the perfect recital, the perfect performance, what has their brain done during that performance? Nothing. Their brain, all the brain will have done is not be nervous. So it'll be off somewhere as if it doesn't exist. The fingers will be doing themselves exactly what they've been drilled to do in those practice sessions. The muscles will be remembering, you know, what notes to play. And the person then feels like they're in control. It's ridiculous. I mean, when you look at it, it's such a comedy. It's so absurd. I mean, I could really think it's not 2025, but rather like 500 years earlier, like it's the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages. It's so backward, and the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. It's ridiculous. So that is as much as I'm prepared to cover on that at this point in time. That's about as deep as I'm prepared to go. Like I said, it's a loaded sentence. And it's as deep as Bach is prepared to go at this point. But there is a lot to chew on. And it's already deeper than anything you'll hear from the Roll of Honour. Let them go deeper. There's that sentence in paragraph 8. He says the same thing, essentially in paragraph 20. Everything Bach says can be considered too, not just my commentary on it, but what Bach says himself is something in its own right that can be pondered. And what would you do? Forget about what I say. Just think of what Bach himself said. I'm reading Bach's words. I'm not altering them. And my translations are as faithful as they possibly can be, because I want to present Bach's words. I want to faithfully present Bach's words. And so I read his original words so they can be heard too. What would you do with those words if he were to say them to you in a lesson? What we also might be getting here with these examples is a glimpse into Bach's understanding of the nature of the tied note versus the dotted note. The tied note rises till it culminates with the tie, whereas the dotted note begins and is stretched till the note or notes following the dot come like the release of a stretched rubber band. Notice how his treatment of the dotted C in the alternate version of 74B, the way he applies the mordent, is similar to the way he applies the mordent in figure 74C, when the note syncopates on the one tone. Whereas his treatment of the tied note in the alternate version of A is similar to his treatment of the syncopated notes of 74D, with changing intervals. The mordent in the alternate version of A could potentially be seen as representing the expression or shaping such a musical idea would have without the ornament. His father's toccata uses just such an idea. Of its lengthy subject, the detached instrumental call gets a more sustained singing response. Shaping the subject of a fugue is a very specific activity and presents very specific choices one has to make in one's lessons, or you know, when one's tackling a fugue on themselves. When weighing up all the options, one could think, well, what's Bach's son's take on it? Instead of copying the roll of honour. Copy the roll of honour if you want, but do it as someone informed and not out of ignorance, which is from what the roll of honour's version springs. And two wrongs don't make a right. With 74B, we can as well see a change of the treatment of the D and E 16th notes that follow the dot. Bach is talking about a slower tempo, which would support the additional short mordent over the D. But also what I notice is that there is no longer a dotted note in B, which, tempo aside, would change the character of those D and E 16th notes. Bach could have potentially placed that extra mordent over the D in order to make the change to the dotted C and still preserve the intention of the composer. I'm just throwing that out there as food for thought. These are locations in the world of music. None of them exist in the cage. And this is a conversation, again, that it would seem is too grown up, too advanced for the roll of honour. But one I'll be leading on this channel when I get to the point where I can discuss it in full, much like I did with the Prowl Trill scam. And if that doesn't get the support it needs to become a larger discussion, it's condoning the quality of education you're paying for from the roll of honour. and I can't even listen to that drivel, let alone pay for it. In the meantime, I'll just reread some of paragraph 14 from the chapter on trills. Es rührt dieses von dem Vortrage der punktierten Noten, wovon in dem letzten Hauptstücke gehandelt werden wird, her. Vermöge dessen, die auf die Punkte folgenden kürzen, allezeit kürzer als die Schreibart erfordert, abgefertigt werden. So, that's that. Thanks. Bye.